If you have walked around the streets of Lisbon, you have certainly noticed a store that looks like an amusement park, a fairy tale. It's a store that invites everyone to come in, and then you realize they're selling tin fish. Grupo Valor do Tempo, that translates to the value of time, is an organization responsible for bringing the Portuguese traditions to the public in a very special way. With their 48 stores, that includes 2 new ones that will open soon and one at Times Square, they prove that you can add a lot of value to your products just by giving a phenomenal experience. Since the episode went live, they added to their tin fish business cans of crab and lobsters to their portfolio. So let's go to the interview with Tiago Quaresma, the managing director of the group. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 50 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Welcome to the show, Tiago.
Well, thank you, Paula. It's very nice to be here.
All right, so we are at the beginning of spring. Are you excited for the summer season?
We are actually, for us, the peak season starts right now. The Easter is the very first moment of the peak season. Our peak season goes from April to October, and it's very much because of the cruise ships, because Lisbon is a very hot spot for cruise ships. We are very, very hopeful that we're having another good peak season this summer.
Yeah, and you work with a very specific segment in retail that I don't think people talk too much about it, which is travel retail.
It's true. It's very often forgotten.
Yeah, and I think Portugal has never been so trendy. I was reading at Reuters today. I even got the data here, but in 2023, you had a record of tourists coming to Portugal with 11%, even higher than pre-pandemic levels. How is that for you?
Well, it's great. First of all, I think all that attention is well deserved for the country, especially for one very key reason, which is tourism industry is perhaps one of the most democratic ones you can find, because it's very, I won't say it's easy, but it's much more possible in this industry to start from nothing, to start from zero and create a good business than it is in many others. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about our sector. It's very democratic and I loved it.
You think so? I don't know, when I think about travel retail, well, your stores are beautiful, and that's why we connected, right? Because I couldn't get enough. I was like, oh my God, I need to meet who did that. I feel like it's just like those magnet stores. I don't feel
Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying that all the business attached to the tourism activity is great. I'm saying is that it is possible for any entrepreneur with a good idea is much more likely to succeed in the tourism industry than it is in many other different activities. That's why Portugal took off for the past, I would say, decade since the tourism boom started, because it raised new possibilities. If they have a good idea, they can succeed. It doesn't mean I underline everything that is happening, and then at this very moment, Portugal is facing that challenge because we have many shops which are not the standard that we would prefer to have. It's a challenge the country is facing right now, and we must find a way to solve it. But what I like the most about the industry is that it makes the doors are open for many more people than it is in other kind of industries. That's the most beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because, as I said before, I got fascinated by the store, right? Like, if you're walking on the streets here in Lisbon, you see this golden store, you have no idea what it is. You just want to get in. It's just wonderful. And I've been covering retail for a while now. And I usually talk about innovation. I'm used to seeing a lot of innovation in retail and in terms of technology, right?
Yeah.
Like usually I'm talking about technology adoption, etc. But I think you innovated in a completely different way. You innovated on the way that you present your product.
Yes.
And just amazed by that. But where did it come from?
Actually, what I just said is an old battle of us, which is that innovation isn't necessarily about technology. And very often those two things get mixed up and it doesn't make much sense. For instance, when we're talking about our tin fish business, it exists for 2 centuries almost already. But we did something in a different way than it was done before, and it worked pretty well. So that's a different way of innovate, because we presented it with a different language. It was a whole new language to the product itself. And that was our way to innovate. And we did it through retail, but not through screens and stuff like that. We did it through a different approach, like putting a real carousel inside a shop, or creating a Ferris wheel of tin fish, or having a time machine on the ceiling, or having a very colorful environment inside the shop, or having a very specific lighting designed for our own brands, which is one of our best tricks, is the lighting inside the shop, or having our own soundtrack in the tin fish shop created specially to raise that atmosphere of fantasy and amusement. But all of that, we always like to stress this point. Even though it is in a playful way, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's not serious. It remains something very serious. It's still very serious. We have our own factory back in Mortosa, Aveiro, with 100 women working with their hands, and handmade processes are key for us.
But that's how you keep the tradition, which is what you're selling.
Yes,
right?
And you can still be innovative. You can still create different atmospheres, and you can still raise fantasy, and it can still be serious. One thing is not the opposite of the other. So that was our way to innovate, to pick a product that has been around for 200 years almost, in our factory since 1942, so even our factory quite old too, but to present it in a different way, because we believe that people were not really capturing the essence of the product, and we needed to raise attention. And we did it because, yes, the shops are very colorful, some of them are circus themed, and you might say, well, they are playing with it. Yes, they are playing with the presentation, not with the product and its history. Let me give you a different example of innovation. Another business of ours, which is the codfish cake shops. In Gaia, we have a pipe organ from 1853 that plays every hour for half an hour, plays and stops. We charge nothing for people to watch this show. But then what happens very often is that people feel like they owe us something, and then they go and they buy something.
I had such a great experience. I do this all the time.
because you want to pay back what you just got for free. This is innovation too, for the simple reason that it's something that was never done before. That's the definition of innovation, something that was never done before. And we do that. And I think this is important because, I mean, I'm not a technology guy. I don't know much about technology. And I know that, like myself, there are millions of people who very often feel like they can't innovate because they are not into technology. And that's not true. Actually, I will be provocative. I think it's easier nowadays to be innovative outside technology because everybody's in technology. So if you deviate a little, very few competition in that specific niche, because everybody's trying to innovate in technology and is a very tough fight.
Screens, touch.
And a lot of companies are already there. So if you escape from that competition and you go to a different one where you are almost alone, that's way better, because there are two typical mistakes. You mentioned innovation and everybody thinks of screens and stuff. And you mentioned being competitive and everybody thinks of low price. And these two realities are not necessarily true. And we fight them on a daily basis.
How much is a can of sardines in a supermarket?
Around €1, $1, around that.
All right, so...
You picked the most expensive one.
I got the most expensive one. Is this sardines?
Yeah, those are skinless and boneless sardines. Yeah.
This is your favorite?
For my personal taste, I prefer the octopus. You have down there too.
We also have
But that one's special because to get a skinless and boneless sardines, to take the bones and the skins out, there isn't any machine in the world that can do that. So the only way to do it is with the hands of the people. That's why it is so special. That's why it costs €22 here in Lisbon. And people want to buy it much more than they want to buy what they have in the supermarket, because they know they have something special in their hands. But I mean, we are all in a way victims of this on a daily basis, even if we don't recognize it. Because let's talk about Portugal. Portugal is a 10 million inhabitants country. It doesn't make any sense for a country like ours. On the top of that, we have a great history, but let's forget history. Let's talk about economics itself. A 10 million inhabitants country. It doesn't make any sense for a country like ours to focus on low price. It just doesn't make any sense. We are small in size, we are small in population, we will always be beaten by someone else. We must focus on added value. That's the only possible way for a country like ours, added value. And so where do we get the added value? You get it in history, you get it in people's work. That's where you get it from. So, and you must take advantage of that. In the 60s, Portugal had around 400 different tin fish factories. Nowadays, there are only 14. So we're talking about a sector that almost disappeared. And why did it happen? Because exactly of the mistake you mentioned. Because everybody was too focused on the low price strategy, producing more and more and more. And in our opinion, it is a way better strategy to produce less with much more quality, with much more attention. Each of these cans takes 8 minutes to be produced, each one of those. If you pick any tin fish industry, that would produce hundreds of tins. In 8 minutes, they produce hundreds of them. So it's really a matter of choosing what's the best path for your business.
The best path and how to tell the story. Right?
And how to tell that story. Because what we found when we started our business was, we bought our factory 10 years ago, and we bought it. And the moment we stepped inside, we were absolutely fascinated by what we found inside the walls of the factory. Because it's a human show. Because you see them, all of them working with their hands. And it was really, we got emotional when we saw it. But we saw it because we had the chance to visit the factory, to get inside those walls. The regular customer doesn't get the chance. So how we will make him understand all this reality? Let me be honest, at first we tried to discuss this with supermarkets. We approached them and we said, well, we bought this factory, we have a special product, it has these characteristics, we have an innovative packaging, it's beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, all of that is amazing, but let's discuss price. And we were really frustrated about this answer. We needed to do something regarding this. We had a problem to solve. And very often that's the best way to be innovative, is having a problem
you
to
have
solve.
the pressure.
Now, that's true. I mean, you have the needs, so you have to do something regarding that need. So we needed to solve it. And we knew that what was missing, the missing part in this whole strategy was making the end customer understand what was behind the product.
I'm a customer, right? So they enter like, what is this? Right? Like, I'm here traveling. I have more.
It is designed to shock. It is supposed to be shocking.
And then like I'm traveling, right? So I'm not controlling so much my budget. I'm happy here. And then I enter in this amazing store.
You mentioned something very important. We're talking about travel retail. All of us, we are not as conscious regarding budget as we are back home. That's 100% of the population. It's not about not being budget conscious. It's about we are all much more open to learn new stories. That's the thing.
Yeah. So they enter the store. What is this? Someone tell them the story. They see something that they can buy to their mom, to their kids, to their dad, to I don't know, to bring something home. So I think that's the experience. That's why I'll pay 20 euros or 15 or whatever for a can of sardines. What are the pillars for the experience you provide?
Well, inside the shop, there are many things going on for that experience to be there. First of all, the physical approach of the shop itself, lighting, I mentioned, is absolutely key. We designed a very special lighting temperature for our shops. We designed it together with a Portuguese factory to make sure the environment was as warm as possible. That's absolutely critical. Then movement. If you work with movement, that's key. Then working a bit with the human psychology, we are all part of that. For instance, our shop in Rocio Square is designed for you to never be afraid of stepping in, because you can always see how to escape. We are always slightly afraid of stepping into a shop. That's part of human nature. We're all like that. So the more
and being trapped and like being told what to do.
Yeah, and then I mean, at least myself, I always feel like this. I always feel like I'm being scanned by the other side, whether I have the money or not to be in that shop. It can be the cheapest shop you can find, but I feel like always I'm being scanned by the other side. So realizing that, we work a lot on that psychology. So if you feel like you can escape, you are 10 times less afraid of stepping in. Then soundtrack is very important because it works a lot with your mood. That's very, very important. And colors, we work a lot with a colorful approach, but in a way that it calms the mind of the customer. And then people, I would say that's definitely the most important one, because, okay, you created a special atmosphere, but then if your staff is not good enough sharing that message, then it was a lost investment, because as you say, many people step in without being 100% sure what they are finding inside. So they need the guidance of someone inside. And we have that pretty well measured. We know that our staff is responsible for 30% of the end result, which means if they perform well, our sales can grow up to 30%. So this is enough for us to invest a lot on them. That's why we have our own academy. We have accommodation for them over there. So they come for training. That's a very strong part of our strategy.
Is that the Dream Factory?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. And it is really a place for our culture to be built. And then they meet people from different shops, from different business concepts. Either it is the jewelry shop or the tint fish. They get to know each other. They share experiences. They share different tricks. And then the most important thing, all of them get out of bed in the morning to make sure they make money for their lives. So nowadays is very common everybody talks about HR and how to keep the teams motivated, and that's all very important, and we have many of those strategies in place. But the number one strategy is their salary. They must make money. They got out of bed to make money. And so that's a strong part in our strategy. All of them have an app where they can check on a daily basis what's their income of the month until that moment. So this is very important because they feel like they are part of the business. During the peak season, some of them can make 2 salaries on top of the salary they are getting. So every day we work very hard on this to make sure they have all the tools. That's why we provide them so much training, and they have all the incentives to be better and better and better, because at the end of the day, we rely on them to share the story. It is more than proof that our business is much more profitable because of that.
Very interesting. You got to the beginning of the production, which I'm gonna get soon, but you implemented this technology and you noticed the increase in sales.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
it.
And I already earlier I said we are not into many innovation in terms of technology. But
this is a supportive technology.
Indeed. The end customer doesn't see it, but we have a lot of technology attached to our business until the moment we get to the shop. Until that moment, we have a lot of technology, and this one is a good example of it. But from that moment on, we want the interaction. And this is something very specific of travel retail, because the same customer that wants back home to New York City, London, or Paris is not interested in human interaction. While he's here, while he's in this ecosystem, he wants human interaction. Our customer, the travel retail customer, wants human interaction. That's why we bet so much in the human part of the business.
Another thing that I want to talk about is, I don't know if everybody knows about Portugal having like super low salaries, super low payment, right? Like this has been going on for years and etc. And you provide the chance for the frontline employees to make extra money, but you also own the whole value chain that comes before that. And as we said, you can sell for $15+ each can. How does it benefit the whole value chain?
Let me put it the other way around. The only reason why we sell it for 15 euros a can is because the whole chain was properly taken care back. Portugal has an issue with added value, a historical issue. Portugal, we keep saying this, we are as good as the Spanish, we are as good as the Italians, we are as good as the French. Either it is regarding wine or shoes or cheese. We keep saying this. This is a very, very frequent discussion in Portugal. We are as good as them, but we sell for just a tiny fraction of the price they sell. Why? Because we keep this strategy of low price. We are the very first ones surrendering, I'll reduce the price. And this is one of the best things tourism brought us, was the chance. You mentioned nowadays we have millions and millions of visitors a year. Let's say 20 million visitors a year. If we manage to captivate 10% of these people, we have 2 million more end customers. In the matter of 5 years, we have 10 more million customers. This is doubling the size of the country in terms of consumption. So this is why tourism is so interesting, because we manage to interact directly with a customer that perceives this added value. So this is the historical problem of Portugal. We sell very badly, and with very good product, but the end customer doesn't get it, because we are not selling it in a way, because the price is very often the first adjective of the product. We've all been there. We've all we've all made decisions in the past based on the price, not because it was the lowest, but because it was, I won't say the most expensive, but certainly not the lowest price. We've all been there. I'm there very often with wine, because I like red wine, but I don't know enough about it. So very often I choose like
instead of getting one that is €2, you get one that is 8.
You get something in the middle in order to don't be judged. And so that's the thing. So this is the problem of Portugal. How do we solve it? We solve it with a retail approach. But why is our storytelling so strong? Because we are together with all the chain. So if we're talking about tin fish, we are together with the fishermen, we are together with the women working in our factory, and then we have the people in the shop. And all these people who are part of the chain, they are all getting much more money they would be getting if they were in a different traditional channel. So this is the thing. But the end customer, when I say that we have the shops to get the chance to tell our story to the end customer, this is the story they are understanding. They know they are being part of much more sustainable economy, and both economical and socially speaking, they are being part of a much more sustainable ecosystem. And more people will value that. Also because it leads to environmental sustainability too. Because if you are buying nearby, if you are paying better those who are in the local economy, surely it will increase also your patterns in terms of environmental sustainability. But let's forget that for now. Even focusing on both social and economical sustainability, people want to be part of that. And once they realize they will be part of that story, they are more than open to pay. They will pay even more because they know they are doing something to solve that problem you mentioned. Because Portugal has one of the lowest minimum wages in the European Union. That's a fact. And that's a fact because we keep reducing the level of our economy, even though we have products at least as good as some of the best economies in Europe, but we just keep failing when it comes to put them in the right place in terms of pricing and in terms of storytelling. That's what we aim to solve with the shops. But and again, this is not charity at all, because we could face it like this. Yeah, they sell it for a good price, they make money, and though they go back to the chain because they are good people, they are socially responsible. But I like to stress this point very, very heavily. It's not making money and then go back and pay them well. The only reason why we made money is because they were always part of it. That's the only reason why. Yes, the shops are nice. Yes, the atmosphere is fascinating and all. I give you all of that. That's true. And I thank you for thinking like that. But all of that, would come to an end very soon if we were not working together with all of them, because that's what makes the story powerful. That's what makes it long lasting, because it's not about the shop. It's about the whole economy. It's about a bunch of people. So it's much more serious than just a nice retail project.
Curious now. So you have a verticalized business, right? You went from the production to selling to the consumer. I think that gives you a powerful advantage also in rewarding the whole value chain, even though you said because of them. But I feel like if you're buying from someone else, maybe they wouldn't get this money or they wouldn't be rewarded as they deserved. But what are the advantages? For me, a verticalized business, it's very on the control costs, being profitable all the way. What is the benefit for your business on the verticalized approach?
It's really about owning the story. Let me give you an example of the exact opposite of cost control. In our codfish cake business, which is made basically because of the Serra da Estrela cheese, which is known as, and has won that award many times, one of the top 10 cheeses worldwide. But if you look at the price, it's not even in the top 100. And that there's a problem to solve because the sheep guards, they're getting older and older, and we needed to do something regarding that. And that's the concept where we have the pipe organ playing and all that stuff. We needed to do something regarding that. So we created that project to help them on the cheese business. And nowadays, we buy half of all the production of Serra da Estrela cheese. And the automatic instinct would be, well, now they depend on you. So, they can't do nothing if you push them.
So let's lower the price.
Yeah, but we did the opposite. So what happened? Once we got such a dominant position, there isn't anyone not even close to our demand. We basically started paying them €5 on top of what they were selling per kilo of the cheese. And then we evolved the strategy to pay to the sheep guard itself €2 per liter of the cheap sheep cheese. And nowadays is the most expensive liter of sheep milk in the world. What's the advantage you guys are taking from that? Well, in fact, now we are part of a much more interesting ecosystem, because now it is known, or it will be soon, as the most expensive cheap milk in the world. And that's huge, that's tremendous. And we were the ones who made that happen. We managed to place it as something really premium, instead of saving some money for, we would save some money for a year or two, but in 10 years, will there even be cheese? Will it still exist? And now we have sheep guards who are 30 years old, back in the business, because that's a better business than being a lawyer in Lisbon. That's what we want to do. Again, not because we are nice people, but because we believe this is a strategy that raises the added value.
This is a good business strategy.
And it raises the added value, and that's all about that, because Portugal keeps missing that added value. And that's our strategy. We have, for instance, a jewelry business too, certified filigree. The matrix is always the same. And we work with artisans in the north of Portugal. Let's imagine you buy a pair of earrings in our jewelry shop, and you get to know all this history, and you know that you are paying some extra because the artisan back in Gondomar will make a little more, will have enough money to go to the movies with his kids. So you know you are paying a little extra to make sure he has that money. And now you will wear those earrings at a wedding. And someone says, well, your earrings are beautiful. And now you have you have a story to tell. And you are more than happy because you paid extra €50 for your pair of earrings. But not only you became part of that, but also,
I think these earrings, I have no idea who made it.
Yeah, that's how. The thing. And so, and you have a story to tell to the person who sits next to you at a table at that wedding. And who knows what starts from there. So that's the thing. Really believe that nobody is losing with this strategy. Something must be said, which is we don't sell basic products, like we're not selling rice or pasta. I know that. So we sell added value products. That's our strategy. We want to make sure, I really want to stress this point. When I say nobody loses, even when the people pay a little extra, because I'm assuming we're talking about added value products and not your daily food to eat at home. That's the whole purpose of our business. So two completely separate things. We have a lot of respect for those who really have to make sure they make efficient choices at home on a daily basis. That's for sure. But then there's a whole new market, which is the added value one. And it doesn't necessarily needs to go to all of it, to Italy and Spain and France. It can, tiny bit of it might come to Portugal. That's our whole obsession.
All right. So we've been talking about travel retail, the value of giving Portuguese products to the people that are visiting. But in 2023, there was a bold move. I knew everything about it, so I was following each step.
And you've been there already.
And I've been there a few times. So you opened a store abroad. So you opened at Times Square in New York. How was that?
Well, it was
because I understand the value of someone visiting Portugal and wanting to take this souvenir back home. Why someone in New York could go to a sardine store and buy one?
That was the $1 million question. Actually, more than 1 million. Because we were not sure about that either until the moment we opened the shop. Because we were not sure, 100% sure, what in our business in Portugal was sold as a souvenir and what part was sold as a souvenir, what part was sold as a product itself. Because people wanted to try octopus and sardines and codfish or whatever. And we didn't know. We just knew, this dream of going international was around for quite a long time. I would say for at least 5 years, we were dreaming of going abroad. And then for the past 2-3 years, the American interest in Portugal really exploded. And so we really created a good connection with the American market, and we started to realize that there was something there. And then even our e-commerce from Portugal, the number one market was already the US for quite a while, bigger than Spain, which is the country just next door. So we knew there was something. And we started dreaming of it. So we went to the US once, we went to the US twice. And then my dad, who is the founder of the company, and you know him too, he's a dreamer, and really a dreamer.
A visionary.
Yeah, I agree. And it was like, well, we were having many discussions in the US and then in New York City, like trying to find the best place. And then we kept asking, if money was not an issue, where would you place a shop like this, a flagship one? And everybody's like, oh, of course, Times Square, but. And then there was always a but. And the but was.
But who do that?
Yeah,
who do this crazy thing?
And then, I mean, what sounded impossible at first started becoming more and more possible. We could start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We started believing more and more. And then it became possible. And let me share this. We own the shop by ourselves. I mean, we are over there in New York City by ourselves. We don't have any local partner. I mean, gladly, we have a lot of people who are being very helpful with the project, but running the business on our own over there in New York City.
It's not like someone representing the brand.
No.
It's
It's really ours. I mean, and it's going way better than we could ever expect. This is the pure truth. And we had that question to be answered, whether people would actually, I mean, would it make any sense? Because we are in Times Square, New York City. It's not a souvenir of Portugal anymore. It's a product. And does this work as a product? Luckily, it does work. People do buy because of the product itself. And people do buy it and do believe in the project, do believe in the product. And we place it there because we have a strategy to approach the whole US market. And we wanted to make a bold statement. And I think we couldn't do anything better than that. It's perhaps the center of the world in terms of, at least is perceived as that. And yes, we are there. We are in Times Square, right in front of the M&M's shop. We got lucky enough to get a lot of media attention because it was quite shocking. And since it was shocking,
do that?
Yeah, and that's the great part of being shocking, because then you get so many.
It's part of the blood of the business. It's shocking people.
And why not? The question is, why not? What's wrong with that? And then we got so much organic content because of that, like New York Times and New York Post.
I saw some like, forgot M&M, go to the sardine circus.
That was Florence Fabricant from New York Times. I mean, talking about a giant in the industry, and she went there on her own. She only introduced herself in the end of the visit. She asked many questions. It was like a week after we opened. She asked many questions. And in the end, she said, well, my name is Florence Fabricant. I'm from the New York Times. And I just loved everything you guys shared with me. And then she wrote, of course, in a provocative way, skip the M&M shops, head to the fantastic world of the Portuguese sardine. And of course, you can't ask for better than this. It doesn't get any better than this. And it was only because we were brave enough to do something that was supposed to be impossible. But then in the end, it was and it is more than possible. And now that's actually the main pillar of a whole new strategy to approach the US market based on this. And then we got lucky with one extra thing, is that during the pandemics and right after the pandemics, there was a boom in terms of the consumption of tinned fish in the US. Because if you think of it, it just makes sense. We are in the Uber Eats generation, right? We just order stuff ready to eat at home.
And e-commerce, right? Like, especially during the pandemic.
But now think of tinned fish. Is a healthy food, ready to eat. It takes you a minute to open a can and put it in a plate. You can.
And if there's a zombie attack, we have that saved for a long time.
We really surfed that wave, and it's been great. And we think it won't stop.
Always when I talk to you, it seems like everything works. Everything goes well. Everything we do is magical. Do you fail?
We do, and certainly we will do again in the future.
How do you deal with failing?
It's a hard process. If you don't deal it, you must deal with failure. I know it is very often entrepreneurs say, well, you have to face failure naturally. Yes, but you must really understand. You must really learn from the mistake, because we take a long time digesting our mistakes, and we do fail. And when we do, it's really a hard process for us, because it's very important to really make sure you understand from the mistakes. But we do fail a lot. The thing is, We keep trying and trying and trying. We're quite obsessed about that, about the process, about creation, about doing new stuff. Because we know, the matrix we created, it can apply to many different fields of action in Portugal, not only in the food industry, we are already in the jewelry business, but always with the same matrix. That's the thing. And then you have my dad, who is absolutely obsessed about innovation. And we have this thing in our company, which is, the president of the company is at the same time the head of innovation. So, you have both things at the same time, so he doesn't need to approve the budget because he's the one who signs for it. So that's why we keep growing so fast, because my dad keeps having fun. That's actually what he does. He has a lot of fun while he has new ideas and creates new businesses.
And how do you approach risk-taking?
The thing is, mentioning my dad again, it is absolutely fair to do it. He's the one who started all of this and came from nothing. So he is the definition of an entrepreneur who starts with zero and goes from zero to whatever it is we have today, but what we have nowadays. And once you feel the taste of that process, you get addicted to it. There's no way you don't. Because one thing is when you are managing a company that existed long before you arrived, and you want to make sure that it will right after you leave.
You have a big responsibility.
But when you have a process like my dad had, you get addicted to it, because you tasted too many times the flavor of taking risk and then get the prize. Risk, prize. So at some point, it's not like you don't feel the danger anymore. You still do, of course. But that adrenaline you get is something irreplaceable. And so I think we all are, in a way, contaminated by that. So we all, as a company, the whole culture, things like that, we all face innovation with a lot of enthusiasm. And I won't say we neglect the risks. We don't really address them, and we know what they are. But at some point, you really are addicted to the process. You want to keep going. And at the end of the day, very often the conservative procedures are the ones who get you to failure faster. So if you keep growing,
are those people that just got used to, we did it, we're great, let's stop innovating.
Very often those are the ones who are closer to failure. They just don't know. They just don't realize. They just stay in the comfort zone. We don't at all. And that's great, because perhaps the best way to grow is this combination between process and chaos. And this growth raises a bit of chaos, and that's great, because it raises the energy, and nobody really is bored at our company. It doesn't exist. When we open in Times Square, that's a statement that we want to go international, and in this case, especially firstly to the US market. It's a long shot, it's a hard task to do, but we will get there. And that's our dream at the moment, to go from a travel retail company with all those things attached we addressed here, but to go from travel retail company to a properly international company. That's the challenge. This is the bridge we're trying to build. I'm not fully sure.
How do you see the company in 10 years? All over the world?
Hopefully, yes. That's our dream, to go from being international inside Portugal to be international, properly international. That's our dream. We're going to work a lot for that. The sardines, in our opinion, are the project that is more ready to take off. That's why we opened the shop in the US. But the good thing is that after the sardines, once the door is open, we can bring many other products, believing that we have good products in Portugal, a good economy that is lacking what I mentioned. Good food, but not only good, mostly a very good. The hands of our people, they do a very good job, and it must be sold properly. And that's our biggest mistake for the past, I would say, a century. We just can't sell our things properly. And that's what we're trying to change with our strategy. Hopefully, soon we'll be that international company who open those doors. But let's see. I don't know. We keep dreaming. That's the thing.
Well, I would ask your advice to young people that are here listening to us, to your story. What did you tell them?
To don't be afraid. Everybody's just too afraid of taking risks. And I'm not telling for people just to leave home and start taking risks in an unconscious way. but we must take more risks as an economy. We must lose the fear of do new stuff, and that's the thing. Just go, do stuff. Don't be afraid, because good things will come if you just are brave enough to leave the comfort zone. This might sound like a cliche, but very often it comes from people who didn't take the risks. We did. And right now we have the prize for taking those risks. And I would say that's the best advice I could give.
Tiago, thank you so much for joining me. It's always
Thank
a
you, Paula.
pleasure
It was
talking
a pleasure.
to you.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. This one still gets many views per week on our YouTube channel. I remember that when I left the studio that day, I was very inspired, and I hope you'll feel the same. Next time you'll see each other, it will be for the first episode of our second season with the CEO of a luxury shoe brand that is becoming the favorite of many Hollywood stars. Have a super happy holiday and a wonderful new year. See you in 2025.